And my humble pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagavan Baba, and also my mother, who is also actually joined today. And so she wanted to hear some stories, and some of them she told me when I was growing up. So, hi, Amma. So, welcome, everybody. Namaste to all the elders. Sairam. So, just to give you some context, I grew up in India, and in those days, my SSE teacher, they didn't have all these big binders and all that. The way she taught us was she would tell us stories. And one of the ways she would tell us stories is that she spoke about her trip to Puttaparthi. In early 70s, she would, it was an arduous journey, not like, now where you just fly into Bangalore and just take a taxi. In those days, she had to go to Penukanda, then from there to Bukkapatnam, from there to Karnatakapalli, then cross Chitravati, go to Puttaparthi. So it was a very, very difficult journey. But the way she would narrate it, she was very innocent, very pious lady. Her name is Mrs. Subbarao, and a very pious lady. And there was vibrations in her when she told her stories, because it is not just coming there and telling a story. She would live her life a certain way, and they would get up in the morning and do Nagar Sankirtan, right? And it is raining in India, monsoon season is really raining. She would still go out with her husband, and they would be singing bhajans, and it's dark outside, snakes, in Chhattisgarh in those days there would be snakes around on the road, and they're going. And my mother, she she was a devotee. So from childhood there was a Swami picture in my room. So my mom would leave me and my brother, and she would go out. And my dad was doing shift work, so sometimes he would be a night shift, but still she would, that pull, that love that Mrs. Subbarao and Mr. Subbarao had for Swami. My mother would go, and I would go on Thursday. They would have bhajans on Thursdays, and there would be a black and white photo of Swami. In those days, to afford a colored photo was also very, it was very expensive. And then jokingly, I would say that in the bhajans there in those days, they would have 2 or 3 dholak players, and then there's no numbering system. So one person from the men's side, one person from the women's side, both would start singing, and then if you like this person, you would follow this person. If you like that person, you would follow that person. And they would sing 2 or 3 lines, and finally one would give up, and then you would, everybody follows one by them. So, but there was innocence. And so the first key point about the storytelling business is that you love for Swami and the way you live your life before you come on Sundays SSE and you talk about a story. You have to read spiritual books. You have to do service, because then that energy comes in and the kids can feel that energy in class, right? Kids can feel that energy. So the first step, story. Second thing is, be very deliberate about collecting these stories and putting them in a catalog or in a diary or someplace. Be very deliberate. Any good thing that you see on YouTube or you hear on Radio Sai, or you read a book, right? Spiritual books of many different types, right? Be very deliberate and actually catalog them. Because, and then what I would also recommend is that once a month or once, whenever a few weeks that you have a meeting with gurus, share those and say, this is a good story for group 1. This is a good story for Sai Nursery. This is a good story for group 3. Because each group, they have their own different dynamics, and different stories resonate with them, right? So share that with your other people. And then that way, basically, you'll have a good pool of stories, right? And especially nowadays, what we are finding in our class is most of these kids have not seen Swami in physical form. So for them, Swami is just Swami, like a picture, right? So I mentioned this story. I shared this story with them. So this is a good friend of mine in Edmonton when I was growing up. Mr. T.R. Pillai, he is my guru, SSE guru in Canada. He was subsequently the principal in Toronto. Sairam, always pranams to his lotus feet. Also, his son, he went to Puttaparthi and he had an interview. And in that interview, Swami basically shared how this fellow would go into his room, close the door, go on his knees, put the book on the bed, and then basically try to study but fall asleep. And there was a Swami picture right on the wall in front. So Swami started narrating this, okay? And this fellow Said, okay, Swami narrated this. I have done many other things. Now maybe he will narrate all those other things also. He's freaked out completely. And he was telling he was just kind of, almost had tears in his eyes. But this story I share with my students to let them know that Swami's picture in your house, it's divine. Don't think that it's just a picture and, start yelling at people and, having arguments, because Swami is watching you, right? And so my mother and wife both are on this call, so they will know, okay, this guy is not following what he's saying. But in any case, Swami is watching you all the time. Swami is watching you in that picture. And with that story, I'm illustrating the fact that omniscience, only Swami knew that this fellow was doing it. Only he knew it because he was closing the door. His own parents also didn't know it. But Swami knew that he was doing that. And Swami also told him, very important. He said, Yogi, right now, you have many friends. All of them are with you because you have some money. He was doing some summer job. He was getting some money. The day you don't have that money, they won't be around you. Right? So only Swami is your true friend. Right? So that story, right? That story for group 3 resonates very well because they are all doing all sorts of things. You think they're in their room and they're studying, but with their internet, right? A lot of the kids, like we do an annual survey here in my group 3, in our group 3, where we ask them questions. And a lot of them say they sleep at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the night. And so I said, don't your parents check when you're sleeping? They said, no, uncle, we just put the sheet over our head and we are going on our iPhone or whatever, right? So I said, what's the thing, right? So that's why the story about Swami watching you, omniscience, is a very powerful story, right? There's another story. This also illustrates omniscience. So there is another lady in Edmonton. She would get up every day around 3:30. And she would go and turn, Swami's Suprabhatam, everything, every day, 3:30, without fail. So when she goes to Puttaparthi, Swami says, Amma, Induk roju nannu poddunna lepestanavu. That means, mother, why are you waking me up every day in the morning? Swami casually said that. But that illustrates that, again, the point that Swami's omniscience and omnipresence. That he's there. That every day that you're getting up and you're praying, right? And Swami in the altar, or wherever you're praying, that shows the point that Swami is actually listening, is actually there. As soon as you take his name, it's there, right? And actually, that reminds me, even Hanuman, right? I tell my kids that whenever you take Lord Rama's name, Hanuman in his astral form will materialize there. Guarantee. It's guarantee, right? And so then I tell them stories about like Ramayana and Mahabharata. They're historical things. They're not mythological. So there's actually a video. There is a video where devotees were there with Swami and they asked Swami, Ramayana really happened. When did it occur? Swami said Ramayana occurred 20,000 years ago. Krishna's life was 5,000 years ago. Big difference between Ramayana and Mahabharata. Swami said 15,000 years difference, right? And so Hanuman, and so this is very interesting for, again, kids of this age. Hanuman, actually, Swami in one of the Sanatan Sarthi discourses said, is actually Rama's brother. And so I asked my kids, that's my good, usually quick question for them. How many siblings Rama had? Most people say 3. No, I say Rama had a sister, older sister, Shanta, from Kausalya, and Hanuman is also Rama's brother. So they say, how is that, uncle? Because when the porridge was given to sister Sumitra also, she kept it there and she was contemplating, my sons will never become king, this, that. Eagle comes and takes it, right? And that's all we really hear in most of the Ramayana versions, because there are many, many versions of Ramayana. There is the Indonesian version, there is a Tamil version, there is Tulsidas version, there is Valmiki version, there are tons of Ramayana versions. So Swami's Ramayana, I kind of like it many times because it has things which you don't find in other Ramayana. And one of the stories is that Hanuman, when the eagle goes, it drops it near the Anjana Devi, and she partakes that payasam or porridge, and then Hanuman is born, and that's why Hanuman is also attracted to the Swami and is really like a brother to Swami, to Rama, right? So the fact that if you take God's name, like Hanuman's name, Rama's name, Hanuman will materialize there, right? So the type of stories that I try to choose are also like historical stories, I would like to call, not mythology, historical stories. And kids love them. Because when I say there are a lot of the boys in my class, right? They're playing basketball and so on, right? So they're very much into basketball and so on. So I said, Lord Rama was 8 feet tall. They go, what? Yeah, I go, yes. I say, in those days, in Satya Yuga, people were very tall. And then slowly they started coming down in height. And now in Kali Yuga again, we're kind of going. That's why next generation, usually, people are going up in height. They go, wow, okay, uncle. And then, and I also say, yeah, so Swami materialized the rings that, Janaka gave or Dasharatha gave to Rama and Chudamani, this, that. Swami materializes all of those things to show to his students, right, that these things really happened and the size of those rings, etc., are quite large, right? Kids are fascinated by that because they say, oh, really, that happened? Really, this happened? And so stories are very powerful. And then the way you can also leverage those stories is that usually I just don't say the story and we leave it. They're a very good entry point into some activity. So, for example, we talk about a couple of these stories about Swami's stories on Lord Rama's life, and then we give them characters, right? We say, okay, there's a little bowl with a lot of chits with different characters, like Kaikai, Mantara, Bharata, Hanuman. We ask them to take one each, and then we say, okay, now you can go on the internet, search about this character, and then you need to articulate what is the key takeaway, key message, what this character represents in Ramayana, what is the real values Swami is trying to convey. And so when you articulate these stories, at the end, you can use that as an entry into some other aspects, right? So for example, dharma. We talk about dharma, and Lord Rama is the epitome of dharma, right? So some kids say, but Lavakusha, Sita had to go into forest. Then how isn't there like dharma that in the Hindu Vedas, in marriage ceremony mantras, you say that wife is above anything else. That's what the husband says in the mantras. So when they are actually doing this, Rama said, no, I'm not going to utter that mantra. Rama just said, I'm not going to utter that mantra. They stopped, the wedding got stopped. And then Janaka had to intervene and change that mantra, which said, kingdom is number one, wife is number two. So Swami, this story was again illustrated by Swami, and one of the wardens was a guest. They mentioned this story. So basically, the whole point is that dharma, when people talk about dharma and Ramayana, right? Kids a lot of times get confused. They say, this happened, why did this happen, right? So if you really dig in, you will find that, Rama never violated dharma in his life, right? And so where do I get these stories from, right? So Radio Sai, videos, lot of Swami students' videos on the internet. Like I just mentioned, Rama Rasakatha Vahini, like Krishna's life, also Bhagavata Vahini. Whole Vahini series, fantastic stories in there. And that I usually read them and then, collect them. Again, catalog them. Don't which page, which book, catalog. A lot of these stories that I heard in Edmonton and so on, that I was not able to, it's all in memory, but I have to catalog them. So this presentation here is helping me to catalog some of those stories. So these are all different places where you can get these stories and be deliberate, as I said, and catalog them. So the first point was prepare a certain way in your life before the Sunday class so that you have the vibrations. Second point is, where do you get these stories from? All these different stories, how do you collect them, right? And then the third point is what type of stories to select. Because, and that has to be age appropriate, but also it has to have something that they have not heard before, right? Something which is very unique. So for example, two stories I'll share about Swami's love for everybody, right? So for example, there is a story, Lieutenant General Chibbar. He was attending Edmonton. He's one of the top generals in India, and him and his wife attended, and he is a Swami devotee. So one of the stories he mentioned is that in early 60s, when Swami went to Badrinath, then Swami actually went to the border and he crossed over the border into Tibet. And in those days, India had lost a war with China. And so the governor was also there, Burgula Ramakrishna Garu, he was there. And he basically said, Swami, this will become a big event, because so finally they came to an agreement that they will not mention this story in Satyam Shivam Sundaram. They will not mention, Kasturiji will not mention this story. So what had happened is that Swami went to the border, and then the Chinese soldiers came and Swami was not wearing shoes. They lifted Swami, carried him on their shoulders, went into Tibet, and then in the afternoon or evening, they brought him back again. So the illustration of this story is that, Swami had love for everybody, unconditional love for everybody. Doesn't matter whether you're Indian or Chinese. For example, Swami went to Uganda. So Mr. Patel, Dr. Patel, officially, that's the only one where Swami actually physically leaves and goes out of India. And Dr. Patel's brother-in-law was a good friend of ours in Edmonton. And so Swami came, and I think Swami landed in Kenya, and then Mr. Patel, the brother-in-law, not Dr. Patel, drove him for many hours from Kenya, Tanzania to Uganda. And then what he mentioned is that Swami had so much gratitude for Mr. Patel that he would call him pilot. He would call him pilot. And every time subsequently, whenever he went to Parthi, Swami would grant him an interview and say, hey, kaisa hai, how are your children, all of that, he would mention. And then Mr. Patel shared a very fascinating story that Swami came around 1 o'clock or some, like very late in the night. He knew right away which room to go. Nobody had to tell him. He just walked upstairs and he knew exactly which room he was in. And then Swami went there, and then Swami said, no, they said, take rest, Swami. You drove for 11 hours or whatever. No, Swami said, no, my devotees are waiting outside. My African devotees are waiting outside. I have to go. So Swami went there and blessed them all, and then he went, right? And so that is something which is, again, a divine, that love for his devotees, again, doesn't matter which country you're from, etc. But couple of other interesting things happened there, which are Mr. Swami told very casually, Dr. Patel, okay, Patel, you pack up everything and you come to India. And he didn't tell him why. And Dr. Patel listened, everything packed. He had a flourishing medical business, doctor business there, very affluent, packed everything, moved up. Whereas Mr. Patel, he had a couple of oil tankers there. He was doing pretty good. He said, what, go this. And so he stayed. And then when Idi Amin came, he basically left with his shirt on. They called him, the army people came and took him, but they didn't do anything to him. They said, give up all your property and then you leave. You just have enough money for your ticket and you go to London. So again, omniscience. Swami knew what would happen in Uganda, what the events will be. So he very casually told Dr. Patel, right? So those are the type of stories that illustrate, the omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence of Swami. Very powerful stories, and the kids will listen when you mention these stories, right? Kids will listen. So I say that when Swami went to Tibet, he went through Badrinath and Kedarnath. So I also went. I went with my mother and my wife, and we went to Kedar and Badri because I wanted to see those temples. Because Badrinath also was originally a Shiva temple, as Swami said, right? So there is a lingam there, right? So I went there. So when I mention these stories, then Group 3 students say, Uncle, we also want to go. We want to go to those pilgrimage places, right? So I said, well, I cannot take you. Parents have to come because it's a very arduous journey. But they say, oh, Uncle, but we really want to come with you, right? I said, yeah, we'll plan and we'll go, because they get fascinated when we talk about how Swami went to a cave and there was a yogi living there and Swami was, blessed him, right? So sages, how do they live in Himalayas, etc. They're very fascinating. What do they eat? Like, they have to go through a certain diet for so many months before they can go live there, right? Because you can go there without food for so many days, right? So what is the type of diet you take, etc. Those stories are very fascinating for these students, right? So what type of stories? Human values, and also love for all creatures. It's not just love for other people, love for all creatures. So for example, there is a story, this is a common story, I'm pretty sure a lot of you might have heard, like in Dharmashetra, once there was a room, inside that there were many saris, and then suddenly there was some event, Swami came and take a bunch of them and he handed them to volunteers and others, guests. And then the next day they came and they saw some water on the floor and they said, what is this? All the windows are tight. There's no chance for rain to come or water to come inside this room. What happened? Then Swami said, those saris are crying because they also have consciousness, right? They're crying for Swami. The fact that Swami didn't come and take them, right? So that illustrates to them that everything, the chair you sit in, the car, the food you eat, everything has vibrations of different levels, but they do have vibrations. So for example, like there was one story, like there was a bunch of deer in Whitefield. They would come to and they would play with Swami, and Swami would feed them. And one day in the afternoon, one deer was crying loudly. Everybody was saying, what is this ruckus? Then suddenly it stopped. So Swami went there. The deer came, and then Swami petted the deer and gave it some fruit. And supposedly the deer passed away after that. So even the animals, they have love. Sai Gita has so much love for Swami, right? So that illustrates to these children that there is love in every creature. Every creature, living and non-living thing, wants to be loved. They have just different levels of vibrations. Love is ultimately the binding force, right? Like Swami says, even the atom, right? How is that atom being held together? Because two positive forces should repel, so the atom should, break apart, right? And why is it not? Because Swami says there is a divine love. That's the force that humans will figure it out. But that is the force that makes sure that atom doesn't split away, right? So anyway, so the stories, the type of stories that you select, right? Stories about personal experiences, like I mentioned, people historical stories, like I mentioned, stories with values, like I mentioned, love for everything, and finally, like also stories which are, I would say, are like personal stories. So these are stories that you have personally experienced, and I have had many events in my life where things were very tough. So, for example, when I was doing my PhD in Canada, things were not going good. I was doing work, coming back, but things were not progressing. Already 1 year got wasted like that. And then one day at night, I went to like an altar, and then I just humbly prayed to Swami, and I said, listen, Swami, and tears were coming in my eyes. I said, Swami, I just cannot do this anymore because I'm wasting time. I'm wasting my supervisor's time. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting money. No progress is happening. And then I just cried and surrendered. I just surrendered to Swami. And then, believe it or not, in the next few months, ideas started coming in my head. Ideas started coming. I started building things. And then before I knew it, the work that I did were published in the top conferences. Like these are the elite conferences in my area. They got published, right? So basically, surrendering to the Lord, the lotus feet of Lord, is very powerful. Is very powerful, right? We need to teach our kids that there's nothing like failure, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people think if you don't get into a top college after grade 12, you're this and that, right? No. In this society, especially, you're lucky that you can go to community college, or you can take a break, you can work, and still come back and do it. So parents should not be putting pressure, right? So these stories and these things are not only to the kids, but also to the parents in the we are parent-teacher meetings. Because one thing I realized is that to have good rapport with students, for them to listen to what you have to say, you need to have good rapport with their parents. They need to see you talking to their parents after Balavikas or after satsang, so that they see that, oh, my dad is joking with this uncle. He's having a good time with this uncle. Then that influences how the kid behaves in the class, right? And also for the kids, every kid, I make it a point to know what is their favorite sport, what is their music, what music do they like to listen, what are the internet sites they go to. You need to talk to them at that level, right? Because then they feel like, oh, this uncle genuinely cares about me, right? And so we basically tell our kids, even to this day, in our class, that if you go out somewhere in your college or wherever, you go to a party, and then somebody that gave you a ride is drinking, never get into that car. But more importantly, if you need Uber, uncle will give you the Uber money. You can call on uncle, doesn't matter what time of the day it is. He will pay for your Uber, because you should not get into a car where somebody else is drinking. Never mind you, but somebody else is drinking. Because our kids are growing in that kind of environment, right? So also stories about other personal experiences, right? Like thought positivity is very important, right? So for example, once me, my wife, our son, and we and my mother and my wife's cousin brother, we all went to Parthi. We're all sitting. My wife, whatever reason, said, oh, I'm going to get a first row today. And her cousin said, yeah, I'm going to also get a first row. Then I was sarcastic. I said, what? Everybody is going to get a first row? What do you guys think you are, right? I was sarcastic. Guess what? My wife got a first row. And then Swami came and blessed her and gave vibhuti to our son. He was a little baby, and first time he's seeing Swami in person. Swami, picture, Swami. He's like one less than a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. He was uttering, it's a Swami. And the Swami materialized vibhuti and gave, and before my wife could take it, 10 women jumped on that little vibhuti and they took it. And my wife was happy. And then Swami came near the men's side. I was sitting right next to her cousin. And we both got second row. So I was telling my cousin, my wife's cousin, yeah, see, we got second row. I told you, right? And then what happened? Suddenly, the people in front of him all got up and left because they got an interview. The guy in front of me, I was pushing that guy. Why don't you get up, dude? Why don't you also go for the interview? He was not budging. He was just sitting. No, I'm not part of that group. So my wife's cousin got front row and I got second. Then Swami came there and then I said, Swami, మేము వచ్చాము స్వామి చాలా సంతోషం మేము మిమ్మల్ని కలుస్తున్నాం అంటే I came it as we came to see you స్వామి స్వామి చాలా సంతోషం చాలా సంతోషం చాలా సంతోషం and he left. But my wife got the Pad Namaskar and Vibhuti. Her cousin brother got first row Pad Namaskar. I was in second row. That's when I realized, man, I was being a little bit negative. I was saying first row, no this, not that. My wife got it. It's so power of positive thinking. Even when you are down in your life, if you think positively, things will change. The divine universe will realign, right? If you are only good in your heart, only thinking good about other people, helping other, universe is very compassionate. It will make you experience your karma, right? Your Shani period means nothing other than you experiencing karma that you have to, the prarabdha karma you have to experience, in this life, right? That's all it is. But divine universe is very compassionate. I always, throughout my life, I have numerous examples where it has, if something has to happen more severe, it would happen much less severe, right? So personal stories of that type are also very important, right? So I'm just going to slide one slide with you because I was not going to bore you guys with slides. So I'll just share one slide with you all, which illustrates these different principles that I just mentioned. And so that you can, in some ways, it is a summary of all the key takeaways. Yeah. Tell me if you can see. Yeah. So the key points are preparation during the week. It's not just going and studying, telling the stories. You have to get your energy level to a point that, kids can feel it. Develop relationship with parents and students. Source all these sources constantly, 24 hours. I'm always, in the back of my mind, I'm cataloging what stories I want to tell. Have variety. Like I said, personal experiences, historical, contemporary people, Swami's life, right? All different types of stories. And delivery strategy. I'm not doing video, audio today, but with kids, audio, video of the story you're saying, if you have some pictures, it makes a huge difference, right? Get into a discussion with them, right? Let them ask you questions, right? Be vulnerable and share what you have, right? Because they can then feel the love. And like I said, post-discussion, lead into activities. Usually ask the kids, at least 2 or 3 kids, if not all, what is the key takeaway from this story? And you keep doing this week after week after week after week. Talk about Swami's love, talk about omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence. Trust me, when every year we do the survey, we ask the kids, what's your most favorite activity in SSE? We have service activities, we have hikes, we have field trips. They say, Swami stories, uncle. Swami stories. Jai Sai. Sister Aparna, I'm basically done, so I'm open for Q&A.
Oh. Sairam, Brother Kaladhar, thank you so much. I mean, what a gift it is for us to hear your way of connecting with SSE students and sharing with us how we can develop that closer bond with them, but also continue this engagement with all of our students. And I know you touched a lot on how you connect with Group 3, which I think is such a critical a thing for all of us as we know, as they're growing into this society of ours, keeping them engaged and keeping them close at heart is also extremely important. So So thank you. And to all of our beautiful guests online, please do share your questions. Put them in the chat, and we would love to see if we can get to as many as we can. One question that comes to mind is, as you were sharing some of your stories and the different types of things that you share with your students, could you give us some examples, or maybe specific or even just broad, on how you might offer a life application to either a historical story or any of the different types that you shared? The life application piece, if you could touch on that, that would be lovely.
Yeah. So one of the very important things that we tell the students, two things. One is the spirit of service. We are inculcating in these kids at this young age that the purpose for life is not liberation or moksha. The purpose for our life is to help others. Swami has very clearly said, your purpose is not for liberation or moksha. Your real purpose as a human being is to help others. So when we talk about stories about Hanuman, right? Hanuman, how he's constantly helping others. He's never thinking about himself. He's always thinking about Lord Rama, and he's helping everybody around, right? And so the spirit of service is very important. That's one way you can connect. The second story, which is also very important for Ramayana, is Vibhishana. How even though he was in the company of quote unquote negative people, right? He did not let that overwhelm him. He actually had the courage, internal fortitude to break out and then came to the good. And this is very important, because when we talk about college, when these kids go to college, they have a lot of freedom, right? They have a lot of freedom to experiment. And I grew up in Canada. I went to college there, so I know exactly what happens, right? And so at that time, how do you, when all your friends, like 20 friends, they're all drinking beer and you're sitting there and they're all pressuring you, drink, 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 drink. Like for them, it's like a mob mentality, right? And then you need to have that courage at that time to say, no, I'm going to take a Coke or a Pepsi or water or something else, right? So it is that Vibhishana story, how you can tie that to real life experience, like in college. Because trust me, college is the time when a lot of things happen. But still, there's one thing I'll tell you: even if for whatever reason, for 2-3 years or 10 years or 20 years, they deviate from the path, they still will come back. Because the fact that you are exposed to Swami, the fact that you are exposed to spiritual matters, that seed has been planted. Because of your karmic consequences, etc., because of marriage, because of this, that, whatever reason you might go, but ultimately it will still come back. That I'm 100% sure, because a lot of my friends in Canada that I grew up with, they all did other things. But then suddenly I'm seeing now they're SSE gurus again, they're doing other things. And so they're back again, right? So just because somebody is not there, like coming to bhajan every day, doesn't mean that, they are not thinking about Swami.
That's a great point. Yes, I think probably for many on the session today, we say trust the process, right? Trust the process, because it sounds, like it's probably natural to get a little nervous when there's so many distractions, and we want to keep all the students on the right path, and we have to know that Swami has us all, in his palm. So yes, thank you very much for sharing that. If there are any questions at all that we have coming through? Let's see. Let me just. Here's a question that has just come through. What kind of Baba stories would you share with kids who are very new to Baba and maybe their parents are not devotees?
Right. I think for a lot of new people, it is very important to share stories and basically convey to them that it is okay, right? It is okay that you're not, from day one, not doing bhajans, not attending your spirit. It's okay, right? That the stories we would usually like to share with those kids is of service activities, right? Which inspire service, spirit of service. Because what we found is that kids of that age, and even for some of the parents, that is the easiest way for them to associate with, the whole, organization and spirituality is the service activity, right? So you say, hey, call your parents, you're making pizza, you can call your parents, right? Usually we only get kids to do it, but if sometimes there are some parents that I think will, can benefit. I'll say, hey, you can call your parents, they can come and drop you off and come and help us. And then you usually talk to them during that service activity, this and that. And next thing you know, they're coming for bhajans, they're coming regularly to seva activities, because a lot of times people would come because they just want to chat, right? We say a lot of times, shh, can't talk after bhajan, can't talk in service, this, that. A lot of these new people, when they came, they're coming to basically share that love or honey of Swami. They want to experience that divinity. So they'll come and ask a lot of questions about Swami, this, that, how did you become Sai devotee, what is this, that, right? Because through your life, the way you live, the actions, they are basically judging Swami. Like Swami says, your life is my message, right? So if I'm nasty to people at work or here, right? And then suddenly I'm going and saying, Baba, that doesn't work. The energy levels and the vibrations will not work, right? Because even at my work today, I'm technologist, I'm like, field CTO, but my job half the time is counseling people because they just want to come sit in my office and just talk. And then I slowly talk about spiritual things. And that's all they want. Even the CEO, like the chairman board comes and says, Cal, can you just come to my room? I just want to talk to you, right? It's because it's the love for Swami. It's the love. It's the love. That once you start seeing that in everybody, even if somebody does something wrong to you, this, that, you just forgive them because of the love. So the satsangs, reading spiritual books, service activities, they help you to create that love where you overcome negativity. Even if somebody is giving you negative energy and whatever, it just neutralizes, right? And I also believe in Rudram. I do every Monday. I do Rudrabhishekam because my grandfather taught me when I was a young kid, Vedas. And he told me, do this, it'll protect you from all forces. He told me that. So to this day, I believe that. So that is something I'm doing. And that's, again, I teach the kids, right? I say, when you get in the airplane, when you get in the car, when you get into school, when you go to a shopping mall, say the Gayatri Mantra once mentally. It will protect you and everybody in that venue. And then again, I tell them stories about, Goldstein and that. There are a bunch of stories about Swami, how he saved the terrorists from, doing something wrong to the plane. Because when one plane got destroyed, Swami said, even if one person in that plane had uttered the Gayatri, that plane would have been safe, right? So the way you live, the energy that you develop, that is what will attract these new parents. And any chance that you get, casually invite them to service activities, invite them for a coffee, invite them, and then that bond will get formed, and they will see that. And don't preach, don't right away start bombarding them with this, that. No, just casually, and make it fun for them, and then say, hey, we are doing tree planting, you want to come and help out? And this over time, the fact that even there is Swami's grace and will, right? So, Sairam.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we have one more question, just given the time. The question is, do you ever have students that resist the spiritual aspect, talk of Swami, God, gods, or the old stories?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How that?
There will always be now, like more than 30 years now, I've had the full spectrum of students that you can think of. And definitely there will be kids who want no part of this, right? But then they will love NFL football. They will love LeBron James, right? And they will love, whatever, currently Taylor Swift, right? They will love someone they will love, okay? As a human being, you're born to love. So they will love someone, and you need to find out who that someone is, and then use that as a starting point, right? You don't need to tell them. And so that's the other thing. You need to gauge your audience. Like if half the people are interested in certain thing, tell a story about how LeBron James did some service activity. They will zoom in, right? They will zoom in, and also get other speakers. You don't need to do the hard work. Get parents, get them to do some hard work too. Say, hey, I'm looking for like five weeks. I'm looking for some good stories. Some of them are students. Some of them, a lot of things to share. Get them engaged. Schedule them in your curriculum, right? We strategically plan. We get older group 3 students, graduates, parents, grandparents. Get them all scheduled as part of your integrated program. So it's not just you sitting there every week, right? Take them out, take them to field trips, take them, because they don't want to sit in the classroom all the time. The program has to be dynamic, and that only happens when there is unity in the gurus. You have 4 gurus, 3 gurus. They all, in our thing, one person says something, we all say, yes, let's do it. Let's try it, right? If it doesn't work, we'll pivot and do something else, right? There has to be unity in the gurus, unity with the parents, right? Unity with the center execs, right? Because I've experienced over the 30 years, all of these issues when there is lack of unity. So if you have unity, that brings energy. And if you live a certain way, all the other gurus will also live that way. Because it's a very cumulative amplification of energy. And then the students and the parents, they all feel there is something special going on here. And they will invite their friends. If we have a lot of nowadays, like since Swami has passed away, physical form, a lot of these new students we are getting is because the referral, I call them referral students, where one student will tell their parents don't know anything about Sai, but they say this is something good. Our kid really likes what the other kid is doing. They're doing cool things, right? So that's how it comes.
Wonderful. Wow, what a powerful message for us to close on. On behalf of all of us, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experiences with us. I think we're all just thrilled to be able to take some of what you've taught us today and implement them in our classes. So thank you so much. And unfortunately, just with respect to time, we'll have to wrap it up for this session. But thank you all to everybody who is on today. And we will take a bit of a break over the summertime. We will reconvene in August. So, of course, we will send you notifications and, of course, the Zoom link and all the good information as that gets closer. But have a wonderful summer. And thank you again, Brother Kalather. Thank you so much. Thank you.